Thank you so much. Today, I am Frederick D. Haynes III. I am the chairman of the board of the Samuel DeWitt Proctor Conference, as well as the senior pastor of Friendship West Baptist Church in Dallas, Texas. And I've come today to stand with low-wage federal contract workers who today are on strike. They are here at the president's doorstep to ask him to sign an executive order raising their pay. It may be hard to believe, but the United States government, sadly, sinfully, and shamefully, is America's biggest bad job creator. And so we are saying to America and to this president, and yes, to this nation, that it is a sin, it is sad that you have good people with bad jobs. They are overworked and they are underemployed. And there is something immoral about that. In my faith tradition, Jesus said, where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. What does that mean? It simply means that where you put your money is a moral issue. It is immoral that we have low-wage workers right here in the United States of America who work hard every day but barely making ends meet. In a real sense, they are making poverty wages. That is immoral. And the question we raise today is, America, where is your heart? Because where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Where is your heart? Mr. President, you promised to do everything in your power to help the middle class and combat income inequality. Let's start by helping these workers. Where is your heart? Mr. President, you have spoken of ladders of opportunity into the middle class. Let's begin with a living and just wage for these workers. Where is your heart? With that being the case, a delegation of striking workers has just returned from meeting with White House officials. In the meeting, they delivered hundreds of letters written by workers. Our president reads every evening 10 letters from Americans. Mr. President, please read these powerful letters from some of the workers that you are responsible for. Number two, 250,000 online petitions from the American people, including many organizations such as Presidente.org, Democracy for America, Our DC, the ProgressiveCongress.org, Daily Cost, Demos, Some of Us, and Interfaith Worker Justice, and many denominations representing various faith traditions. And finally, a letter from national religious leaders. And so we're going to hear now a report from the delegation. We're going to also hear from distinguished guests who I am so proud to say not only do they work hard in the congressional suites, but they are concerned about those of us who are in the streets. And so I'm too proud to welcome at this time those who are coming back from the meeting.
The delegation still meeting with the White House officials.
That's even better. The delegation is still meeting with White House officials. So in the meantime, that's a good sign. In the meantime, let's hear from one of our heroes in the Senate. He's always on the side of economic justice and fairness, the incomparable Senator Bernie Sanders.
Thank you very much. And let me begin by thanking the people behind me and the many others who are not here. I know that it takes a lot of courage to stand up and fight for justice. And the point that I want to make to you is you are not just fighting for yourselves. You are fighting for millions of workers in this country who are struggling with starvation wages.
Right.
So let us be very clear. People cannot live on $7.25 an hour minimum wage.
Right.
They can't live on $8 an hour. They can't live on $9 an hour. And that is why I and 14 other United States senators have sent a letter to the President of the United States, and we said, Mr. President, sign an executive order, make sure that every contractor, federal contractor in America pays at least $10.10 an hour. And that those contractors also provide decent benefits for our workers. And I want to thank Keith Ellison, who continues to do a great job in the House of Representatives, and all of those folks in the House who have signed a very similar type of letter. The fact of the matter is that private companies receive more than $400 billion in federal contracts in this country. That is a lot of money from the taxpayers of this country. And if they're going to receive $400 billion bucks, our demand is a simple one: pay workers a decent wage and provide decent benefits. And what is doubly important about this issue is that we know that most of the new jobs being created in this country today are part-time jobs. They are low-wage jobs. And we have got to get a handle not only on unemployment, not only on income and wealth inequality. We have got to get a handle on raising wages throughout this country so that workers do not depend upon starvation wages. So I just want to thank all of you for your courage. You're standing up for millions of your brothers and your sisters, for their children, for their parents, who are saying that work is important, work is dignity, but people deserve a decent wage when they work. So thank you all very much for what you're doing.
One more time, Senator Bernie Sanders. And now, of course, one of our wonderful heroes in the House of Representatives, because he uses his prophetic and progressive voice as a voice for the voiceless. He is incomparable. We are so proud of him. He's always on the case. The one and only Representative Keith Ellison.
Thank you, Reverend. Thank you for leading the way and signaling to our faith leaders that it is good and just and moral and right for us to say that it is justice that the members of our congregation should be calling for workers. From the pulpit, we ought to hear that workers got to be paid right. From Congress, we got to hear that workers got to be paid right. From the tops of our corporate community, we can't let these people just say, you know, we're going to reap the benefits of federal contracts, but we're not going to pay the people who fry the chicken and keep the place clean and safe, and the people who make the hamburgers. We're not going to let them get paid right. We got some rebalancing to do. We got some equity to create. You know, the fact is that folks want to say, well, you know, these are just, you know, teenagers who have these jobs. This is a lie. It's not true at all. There are folks who of all ages who are working in these jobs at federal contractors who are making $7.25, $8, $9, who are, and less than that, who are depending, literally depending upon a fair wage to put food on the table, but they're not getting that fair wage. And I'm gonna tell you, in this country, we know that when working people fight and hang together, we get results.
Right.
When working people come together and will not stop and are unrelenting and persistent, we get justice.
Right.
50 years ago, right in this very area we're in this right now, 50 years ago, Americans of all colors came together and said we got to end segregation. But at that march on Washington for jobs and freedom, we said we needed to end segregation and we need to get some quality jobs.
That's right.
And so right now we renew that call for good jobs now. Now, I believe President Obama's heart's in the right place.
Right.
He said he wanted to see the increase in the minimum wage.
Right.
He said he would issue an executive order to do so. But you know what? While his heart's in the right place, his hand's not on the right place on the paper.
Right.
We got to have him actually sign that executive order.
That's it.
I'm proud that we got 49 members of the House, 14 members of the Senate, 15 members of the Senate, to come together and say to the president, sign an executive order. Bernie and I both know that Congress, beset on all sides by people who don't necessarily believe that the worker is worth his hire, they're not going to pass an increase in the minimum wage anytime soon. We're going to make them do it eventually, but right now, it's a tough road. But in the White House, they can sign an executive order to say that if you want a federal contract, you've got to pay a responsible wage.
Exactly.
If you want a federal contract, you can't discriminate against people. You can't say, well, we don't hire blacks. Not if you get a federal contract.
Right.
You can't say we don't hire women, or women only got to work in the back. We don't hire gays. We don't hire these people. We don't hire those. But what about paying people fairly?
Right.
If you want a federal contract, you got to pay people fairly and responsibly, that is at a minimum 10 cents an hour, should be more than that. If you look at the cost of living in this city, in Washington, D.C., you're going to need about $30 an hour to make it go. So what these workers are asking for is nothing but fair. It's just basic fairness. And the federal government, which represents us all in this country of, by, and for the people, should not be the entity that pays the people less than their worth.
Right.
It should be the place that sets the example, that sets the pace, that shows the corporate and the private sector that people got to be treated right. It should be the pace setter, not lagging behind. And I am ashamed to tell you that the federal government is the largest funder of low-wage work in this country, more than Walmart or McDonald's put together.
Wow.
And you know, and I'm telling you, this is a movement, folks. All over this country, people are rising up. People at McDonald's and Wendy's and Burger King and Tim Hortons and all over this country, people are rising up. And people at the Smithsonian and people at the Union Station are rising up too. And we're not going to quit. And we are all colors, we are all cultures, we are all faiths. And we're going to hang together till we get justice. And we're going to hang together until we win. And that means really freedom and justice for all, prosperity in the richest country in the history of the world. Yes. Thank you all very much. We won't quit. We're there for good. Thank you, Reverend.
Thank you. Representative Keith Ellison, always on the case. And of course, we are too honored today to have a voice again for the voiceless. He is our Black Eagle. He has vision. He has strength. He is always on the case. Please welcome the main man himself, the one and only Joe Madison.
Let me begin by saying this came to my attention because Joe suggested that we interview at least two people that I remember vividly, and I'll make it brief. One was a young lady who worked for McDonald's at the Smithsonian, at the Air and Space Museum. She gets, Senator, her lunch from McDonald's. She takes her lunch home so that she doesn't go to bed hungry. Her manager told her she had to eat her lunch at lunchtime or she couldn't take the lunch home to eat. That's a true story. It is. It is. I saw a woman, met another woman in a panel discussion who worked at the Reagan building for Subway. She makes sandwiches, clears tables. She's worked 11 years, no vacation time, no sick leave, no overtime. She cut her finger, her hand. She had to pay $2,000 out of her own pocket. She was even docked the 2 days that she needed for medical attention. Less than $9 an hour after 11 years. So you didn't have to beat me over the head to tell me that this is an issue. So let me tell you, it's a good sign, and for any media here, you're going to get that signature. It's a good sign that they're still in the White House talking. It's a good sign. Because if it wasn't, they would have accepted the petitions, walked them out the gate, and they'd have been standing here. It's a good sign. But let me tell you something else that's happening. I may be out of school here, Keith and Senator, but let me tell you, I had a chance to have a one-on-one with President Obama just prior to the King holiday celebration, the March on Washington. We were in the Roosevelt Room. There were several talk show personalities that were there, and we really were talking about the Affordable Health Care Act. So he asked near the end of the meeting, is there anything else out here I should be interested in? I remembered as I sat there something that A. Philip Randolph did when he had a one-on-one with Franklin Roosevelt. When he wanted to get jobs in the defense industry, he made a case the way that you're making a case today. And Franklin Roosevelt said, my heart is with you. I hear you. I understand it, but you've got to make me do it. And that's exactly what I said to the president. You are the landlord of Union Station. You're the landlord of the Reagan Building. You're the landlord of these museums. You are the landlord. You're responsible. You can sign an executive order that will immediately lift 2.5 million people out of poverty, and Congress can't do a damn thing about it. I'm saying to you, mark this date. You're going to get it. It's going to happen. But you're going to have to make him do it. I respect him. I appreciate him. But I say to you, just like A. Philip Randolph respected Roosevelt, he had to make him do it. That's all I've got to say. This is not a moment. This is a movement. And the difference between a moment and a movement is sacrifice. And you made that sacrifice today when you walked off these jobs. Keep sacrificing. He's going to sign that executive order. God bless.
That's right. Just do it. Just do it. So thank you so much to Presente.org, Democracy for America, Our DC, ProgressiveCongress.org, Daily Cost Demos, Some of Us, Interfaith Worker Justice. All of these organizations have engaged their membership, and for that we are grateful. We also want to thank, of course, the American people who are standing with our workers and calling for justice. Signatures, of course, again, 250,000 were delivered to the White House. The meeting is still going on. That is a great sign. And as Americans, we want our tax dollars used to create good jobs and not, as was said by Senator Bernie Sanders, starvation wages. And so we're believing for economic liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much, and we look forward to the continuation of this movement for economic justice. Peace.